Hey everyone, this is Josh Lockheed, training evangelist here at QuoteWerks. Hope you're having a great day, and I want to thank you for joining us. As today we're going to be reviewing the HubSpot CRM integration within QuoteWerks Web. I have with me today Brian Laufer. He is the vice president here at QuoteWerks, and we're both going to be working with each other here to make sure that any questions that come in throughout the course of the presentation are addressed. And he's also here for just additional emotional support for me. That being said, again, per the slide that we're looking at here, we're going to be touching on the integration points between QuoteWerks Web and HubSpot CRM. I noticed that we have some users that are currently using HubSpot CRM with QuoteWerks Web, others that are not. We're going to try and provide as much information to provide you a good understanding of what the integration is and how you might set it up. But I also want to welcome you at any point to answer or ask questions that we can answer throughout the course of the presentation. Here's a quick slide about the questions box. If you're new to GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar, you can go to the top right of the window there, and there'll be a section where you can type in questions. As I mentioned, myself and Brian will be reviewing those throughout the course of the presentation. So pop them in there, and we'll certainly look to answer those as best we can. The other thing I want to mention is that if we aren't unable to approach a topic during this training or miss your question or whatever the case may be, we're always available to you at community@quotewerks.com. So feel free to shoot over an email there if you have any specific questions. And I'll also mention that our tech support team is always readily available to help as well. So along the lines of the HubSpot CRM integration, HubSpot is one of our integrations that we have as we integrate with a number of different CRM and PSA systems. And we're going to focus on, again, the specific integration points that we have with HubSpot CRM. So one of the great things that we can do is actually go into the HubSpot contacts list and pull existing contacts into QuoteWerks quotes. We can also leverage our system to create and update HubSpot CRM deals from a save action on a quote. We can also use the products and services that we have within your HubSpot installation. And also, once those quotes are sent over as a deal into HubSpot, they'll be included in that deal. And if any of those products or services were sourced outside of HubSpot, they'll actually be created as new products as well. Now, many of you may have different recurring services that you offer. The great things about this integration is that the recurring items and products and services all will flow seamlessly into your HubSpot CRM deal. And we'll show you how that works in a little bit here. And then, as I mentioned here, using those HubSpot CRM products and services in your QuoteWerks quotes is another option that you have here. And then also attaching PDFs so that you and your organization can view the QuoteWerks quotes without necessarily having access to QuoteWerks. And there's another thing that we have there that gets attached to the deal as well, which is a DTF file, which is a file format that is used to open quotes natively in QuoteWerks. So not only are you going to have that PDF version for people that may not have access to QuoteWerks, but if you want to go in, edit the quote, and view it natively within QuoteWerks, you have that ability as well. Another thing I'm going to mention here, and we'll touch on it briefly at the end here, is when it comes to using these tools, it's really about what the workflow is for your business. And we've realized that there are different ways to do different things within the system. So you have the ability to use HubSpot as your primary CRM, but use either ConnectWise and Autotask as your secondary CRM. Again, we'll talk about that in a little bit more later, but the general idea is if you want to, say, manage all of the deal work, let's say creating the deal, inserting the contacts to products from HubSpot, but then you want your services team to handle the delivery of the project in, let's say, Autotask or ConnectWise, that is an option as well. So I just wanted to point that out, and again, we'll talk briefly about that a little bit later as well. I will also point out that while we're talking about QuoteWerks Web specifically today, majority of what we can say, or we're going to talk about, if not all, can also be done with our desktop integration. So just wanted to make that point clear because I did see a number of you are also using the desktop version as well. So when we're talking about CRM integrations or PSA integrations, a good place to start is just to walk through how a typical deal or opportunity or quote is built within QuoteWerks, and then how that is interfacing with said CRM system, in this case, HubSpot. So when we look at the QuoteWerks workflow, what we're really talking about here is creating a new quote. First step, select contact. Then you're going to select your products. You're going to provide some form of customization to that quote. It might be changing quantities, pricing, creating new line attributes, summary lines, header lines, whatever it may be. There's some level of customization that goes into building that quote. You're going to save that quote. At some point, the customer is inevitably going to come back and say that they want a change made, or maybe you have to make some adjustments to pricing once the order is placed because you have to go in and change your sourcing methods. Whatever the case may be, you're making some changes after you've initially saved the quote. You're going to save that quote as you go through your iterations, and eventually the preferred outcome here is that that quote will be converted to an order. Doesn't always happen, but that's the best case scenario. So if we take this workflow and we talk about how HubSpot is going to work with this workflow, we'll actually walk through that right here. So as I mentioned earlier, when we're selecting our contacts, we have the ability to pull those from your contacts in HubSpot CRM. Next step, when creating products, here we can go and pull those from your products list that exists within HubSpot CRM, but also mention that you can pull these products, again, from really any of the connected product data sources. They don't necessarily have to originate in HubSpot. So let's say you have a distributor, or let's say you're using our product content description in Edelweiss, or you have just a separate price list in QuoteWerks. You can mix and match those products from HubSpot and maybe, let's say, your services list, which contains all the different services that you're offering. Again, there's many different ways that you can do that, but what we're going to talk about today specifically is that integration point of pulling from the products list in HubSpot CRM. Again, we're going to have some level of customization of the quote, but when we go and save the quote, this is when we actually kick off the deal creation within HubSpot. So we go into the quote, we hit save, and there's going to be a dialog box that pops up that says, do you want to create a new deal for this quote in HubSpot CRM? Hit OK, and what it's going to do is it's going to create that deal in HubSpot CRM based on some inputs that you have. There'll be some defaults that we can set, but then there's also going to be some specific information that you can put in at the time of save, and we'll go through that as well. And one of the great things about when you do save this quote and the creation of this deal in HubSpot, again, is that those products or services, whether they're sourced from HubSpot or another data source, are all going to be included in that deal in HubSpot. So now we're at the point where we've got that quote out to the customer. Again, if they come back to us at any point, we just need to save that quote one more time, and that's going to update that with any of the changes that were made to that deal. Those changes could be pricing changes, you could be subtracting or adding new products, but we're making sure anytime we save that quote, that that's a point to ensure that we are in sync with HubSpot and that everything that's reflected on the QuoteWerks quote is also reflected on the HubSpot quote, or excuse me, the HubSpot deal. And when we get to a point where we're ready to convert to an order, great thing is that that deal gets converted to one in HubSpot, and those products and services are also included in that deal, and you can see that conversion in there as well. So again, this is a general overview of the process of how you might create a quote and get to the point of order conversion within QuoteWerks, and then how you're supported based on the different integration points within HubSpot. I did also want to point out before we hop in there that there are a number of different components to a HubSpot deal, and this might help you to better visualize the points of integration or the things that we're pulling into HubSpot. So over on the left, you'll see that we have information about the deal. This includes the document name, the amount, stage, pipeline, so on and so forth. We've also got over on the right-hand side, number 2, this is going to be the line items. You'll see that we have 3 displaying here, but we actually have 10 line items, or 13 total line items in the quote that we have before us. And you also see in the attachment section, we've got that PDF that we discussed, as well as that DTF, or that QuoteWerks native file format, all included in that deal in HubSpot. So again, wanted to just show you the general process and then what it looks like in HubSpot when we actually create a deal. And we're going to get into actually the process of creating that deal in HubSpot now. But before I do, I just want to take a quick moment, see if we have any questions. And I do not see any, so we'll move on. But again, want to remind you, if you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the questions box and we'll address them here. So I'm going to pull up my QuoteWerks Web, and here we've got a blank document. And we're going to go through that process just like we just discussed in that workflow. So the first one is going to be to go to the Sold To, Ship To tab, and we're going to want to choose our contact that we're going to be using as Sold To, Ship To, Bill To, or All. So you can see when I click the magnifying glass, this is the lookup contact or find contact window, and we have our HubSpot integration that's being used. Here we can search by name, phone, company phone, contact first name, contact last name, or contact phone. And in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and search by the company name. You can see these are all the different contacts that we have associated with accounts that are queried using Aspire. I'm going to go ahead and pull in Joe, and I'm going to select him and then press all, and you'll see that it adds him to all of our fields here, the sold to, the shipped to, and the billed to respectively. And one thing I do want to point out before I move on is that if we did want to, what we could do here is we could come in and actually create a new contact directly in HubSpot CRM as well. Let's say we had a new company that we're working with. We didn't have the opportunity to input their information into HubSpot just yet, but we want to make sure that their records gets created, and we need to get a quote out to them as soon as possible. You can see here that when I put in the company name, the contact title, and begin to type an address, there's a new button that pops up here, this N gold button. Now, I just want to point out that obviously if you're creating a new contact, you're going to want to include the full address, the full city, state, phone, email, for example, but just wanted to show you this as something that you can do, right? So let's assume that we had completed all the information here. When you hit this new button, it's going to go and create a new company and new contact in HubSpot CRM for you if it doesn't already exist. If it already exists, you're going to get an error, and you just have to go back into HubSpot, and it'll direct you into HubSpot to create that new company or that new contact for an existing company within HubSpot. Again, great thing about this is once it's created, you can then go in and search for it just like you did Joe Sales here. And I'll go ahead and replace him back into that sold to field. So you can see that we have our sold to, shipped to, and billed to assigned. And we just went through how the fact that you can create new contacts here directly from this page. Great, so we've created our contact. We've got that contact associated with the quote here. The next step would be populating the quote with some different products. If you worked with QuoteWerks before, you probably know there's a number of different ways we can do that. We could do bundles, we could use the configurator, we could use F2 lookup. But what I'm going to focus on today, again, is the piece that pulls in products directly from our HubSpot CRM integration. We can do that by navigating to products. Now, over here on the left-hand side, you'll see that I have a number of different connected product databases. I've got Eatalyze, Autotask, ConnectWise, so on and so forth. And I've also got different native databases that are contained directly within QuoteWerks, like demo items, for example. With that being said, we can search and choose products from any of these different databases. But again, I want to show you the ability to query a HubSpot CRM database. So I've typed in Cisco here. I'm going to hit find, and we'll see some options display here for us in a moment. So you can see we have the unit cost, SKU if available, description, manufacturer, part number, and unit price. We're going to go ahead and just add a couple items here to our quote. And I'm going to make sure to also add this recurring license and our monitored install. So we've got 3 different products we're going to add to our quote. We can come in here and hit add selected products to our current document. And for each of those products, we're going to have the ability to adjust the quantity, the price, including a price modifier if we'd like. And then I'm not sure if anyone's aware of this, but we also have this really cool price history feature in QuoteWerks as well, where you can see if you've ever quoted this for that customer before. Doesn't look I've quoted for this customer in particular, or if you've quoted for any other customers. Looks like this is not a product that I've sold before, but know that if you have sold a product before, you're going to be able to see the price history for both the customer you're quoting to and all customers in general. Now these are different items in the quote. I can easily come in here and create a new section header or a new heading, or if there were existing ones, drop them in there. I'm not too concerned about the organization of the document just yet, so I'll go ahead and hit add, and this is going to add those products to the system. All right. So we now have those products added into our quote. So let's hop back over into the quote, and you'll see that we have a couple different things here. We've got install service, we've got enterprise license, and we've got our actual hardware product. One of the things that I'd like to do here is to actually edit the line attributes for our recurring product. You'll see right now on the bottom right-hand corner, it says recurring monthly $0. It's because we don't currently have this set up as a recurring product. I'm just going to go ahead and update our cost here too and say that we're going to have a $50 monthly cost associated with this particular document. You obviously want to have some sort of unit cost associated here as well. And we'll go ahead and go to edit line attributes. And this is where we're going to make this a recurring product. So here at the bottom, we have is recurring. We're going to want to put that as yes. We have a couple different options here. Billing cycle. For this particular plan, it's going to be a yearly plan, so annual. And you have the option to start the cycle basis either at the start of the cycle or a specific date. We're just going to keep it as the start of the cycle, which would be when the quote is converted to an order, and the contract dates from the document as well. So you'll see our recurring annual revenue has been updated down here, and we now have a recurring product on our quote. Just checking to see if we have any questions here. See, there is a bunch that come in. Brian, do you think there's anything that we want to bubble up to the rest of the group? You're on mute, by the way, Brian.
You'll go ahead and answer them as you go along, and you show how to link to an existing deal. That's
okay.
Main one.
Awesome. Sounds good. Yeah, that's actually the next step here. So we've got our products, we've got our contact. Next step would be to logically save this quote. And this is where, again, the integration with HubSpot starts to kick in. You'll notice that with a saving a quote, you're going to have the company name and then the date. This is the default, but it can be adjusted if you'd like. We also can set a document number, which will be assigned automatically, status and project number. And the really important part here when you're integrating with HubSpot and really any of the CRM or PSA integrations that we have is this little toggle box. You'll see that it says offline and isn't allowing me to select these two options here. But when I go and hit I'm online, it gives me the ability to create or attach to a deal, and you'll see that create new link document is automatically selected for me as well. So hitting OK is what's going to start that integration piece. And here we are in the create new HubSpot deal. And I think this answers the question that Brian was just talking about, which is we can come in here and create a new HubSpot CRM deal, or if there's an existing HubSpot CRM deal that is within HubSpot already, those will list here as well. So for example, this is all based on your workflow. It's possible that when you talk with a customer, you might create a deal in HubSpot before there's actually a quote to deliver to them. Maybe you're doing some initial investigation, some qualification, user requirements. That would be an instance where in your workflow, you could possibly have that deal created, but not yet have the quote. And at the time of quote creation, instead of creating a new opportunity or a new deal, what you would do is then take the quote that we have here in QuoteWerks and connect it to that existing deal. So this is the way that you would do that. There's not any one right way, but in this instance, we're going to go ahead and create that new HubSpot deal. And you'll see again that we have the name of the document, which is our company name, the date of the document, and then we have our document number that's now included since we saved it. Now, as I mentioned, at the time of deal creation, you have the ability to select a number of different things, and all of these are going to be pulled from HubSpot CRM for you to be able to choose. So here we've got the owner. We're going to leave that as QuoteWerks support. We've got our pipeline. These are just different options that we have created in HubSpot CRM. We have the stage. So in this case, we might say that we have it quoted. We have the closing date. We might say that this is going to happen end of next month. And then we have the forecast. We'll make this pipeline and then type existing business. Again, these are all things that are going to be pulling directly from your HubSpot CRM integration. And we'll say here, this is a new network quote. And this little notes section is where you can put really any notes that you want to be carried over into the HubSpot deal. So when I hit OK, we'll see that process of this being created as a deal in HubSpot. And we now have our deal created, and we can verify that by using a quick shortcut that is actually very beneficial and saves a lot of time. Rather than going and logging into HubSpot directly and then trying to find the deal, you can actually go to this links tab And not only do you have a link to the deal, but you have a link to the contacts and the companies as well that are in the sold to, shipped to, and billed to fields. So I'm going to click on the view deal in HubSpot CRM, and this is going to look a lot like what we saw on that slide previously. We've got the name of our deal here in the top left. We've got our stage and pipeline, close date, all coming over from the opportunity or quote, that we have in QuoteWerks. You'll see existing business was brought over for us as well. And I want to point out the fact that here we have our annual recurring revenue amount, our monthly recurring revenue amount, and our total contract value. So all great things to have, all passed over here from QuoteWerks. Then over here on the right, we have our company record for Aspire Technologies. We have our contacts, so Joe Sales, and then we have our line items that are listed here as well. So you have a breakdown of all the different things that are included. And then over here in the attachments section, you'll see that our DTF file is there. Again, that's the file that is in the native QuoteWerks format. So this is a pretty good overview of what exists in HubSpot CRM after a deal is created. And at this point, you would then work with the customer to determine, what their needs might be after quote, make some changes. And let's say we need to go back into QuoteWerks here and make some changes. Let's say they need to get 2 of these and 3 of these instead. That's perfectly fine. You can do that at any time. And then at that point, you might also want to deliver it to the customer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to deliver. Excuse me, press the wrong one. It's prompting me to save before I go to deliver there. And I'm just going to go ahead and send out this quote to my customer via email. Now, I want to use this as an opportunity to mention that you can certainly send PDFs like this as a means to deliver your quote. There's a lot of benefits here in terms of being able to utilize existing templates, and it obviously is a little bit better than just simply sending a quote from a separate system. You don't have to leave the QuoteWerks system in order to do it. But in addition to this, there are other options that we have, and that option would be Quote Valet. So I'm not sure if many people are really aware of Quote Valet here on the call, but it is QuoteWerks' online delivery and acceptance vehicle for quotes. We have the ability to provide interactive web pages to your customers. They have the ability to change quantities if you choose to allow them to, change selected options, and even pay for and ask questions about the quote. So that's one option that you have would be to send via email, as I just did. The other option would be via Quote Valet, which I'll show you here in just a minute. But because we did hit save, not only did it save the deal, but it's also bringing us back to update the existing HubSpot deal. We do have changes there, so we're going to hit OK, and that is going to update that deal with those changes as well. And there's going to actually be one other thing that happened here that is something to note, which is because we sent that PDF to the customer, it's now included as an attachment here as well, right? So we not only have that DTF, we now have the PDF, and we now have our quantity adjustments that have been brought over into HubSpot as well. All right. So we have the opportunity quoted to the customer. We've done some back and forth, and now we're ready to move forward. As I mentioned earlier, we do have the ability to work with Quote Valet. So there is a potential that that customer will have gone to Quote Valet and actually accepted the opportunity. At that point, you would be prompted to convert the quote to an order. The other option that you have here is if you go to File and Convert to Order, you can manually convert that quote to an order. So different ways that you can do that. I'm going to show you here the Convert to Order option on the dropdown. This is going to change the quote from open to closed and convert it to an order. We're going to hit OK. And once again, we're going to get a box here that is going to essentially determine how we are going to update our HubSpot deal in HubSpot. So all of the different options that we had before are still here. You'll see that it's been updated to 1 conditionally. We could certainly change any of these if we'd like and add additional notes as well. I'm going to hit OK here. And what we'll do is we'll go and see how that opportunity has been updated here in HubSpot one last time. You'll see that we are in stage 1 conditionally, and that the close date is now reflected as today as well. So that is a really good overview of how we are able to create quotes in QuoteWerks using contacts and products from HubSpot CRM, and the general interaction between QuoteWerks and HubSpot in terms of saving opportunity or saving quotes, creating deals, and updating those deals as they move through the process, and then ultimately closing the deal as one and it reflecting that in HubSpot as well. So that's the beginning portion of this presentation, really focused on how to use the implementation. We are also going to talk about setup in just a few moments. But before I get into the setup piece, I just want to stop for a moment, see if we have any questions here.
We do have a question from Alex. His question was, if the customer wants me to quote him two options, how would I assign both quotes to the same deal, and which amount will the deal show? So something I would say with that, Alex, is depending on the complexity of the quote, you could actually use like line item based options. So you could say you can quote option A or option B, and then the item that would go over to HubSpot would be the item that is currently selected. If you need to have a little bit more than that, then at that point, I would probably recommend having two separate deals going over to HubSpot. And the reason behind that is because we can only have one QuoteWerks quote to one deal within HubSpot. So there's two different ways to do that. Hey, Josh, could you show how to do options real quick?
Sure. Yeah, so that's going to be within the line attributes function that we used before. So if we right click on any line item and go to edit line attributes, you have the ability to set it as optional. And there's a couple different options you have here. You can make it so that it is selected by default or not selected by default. And then you can also have an exclusive group as well. So in the case that Brian's talking about where you have two different options, you might make this, like select options. And what it's going to do is if you set that for two separate line items, what it'll do will only allow the customer to select one of them. So that's an option that you have there. And yeah, so that's how you would do that. Just to give you an idea, I can show you what options look like in Quote Valet as well. I know we didn't really get into Quote Valet quote during the demo, but I think it's worth showing at least. Here we've got our quotes, and you can see that this option is here now selectable. Now that being said, in your case, you'd have two different options that they can select across. But needless to say, you can see now how the Quote Valet quote displays and that we are able to provide options on the quote itself.
Perfect. And then also, could you show again the creating the HubSpot deal as well?
Yeah,
So you
sure.
could just resave this document since it's it's
Yeah,
in
exactly.
order.
Yeah, so
Actually, you might. Yeah.
so the mechanism for saving and updating a deal is the same one as Brian mentioned. It's really just saving the deal. So here, we have the option to update closed deal or closed one deal. When you're normally going and saving after you've initially saved the deal, you just see update one or update deal rather than closed one deal. So this is how you could then go and save, and then when you hit OK, this is where the window comes up. Oh, it looks like it's already been set to one, so I'm not able to use this deal. But what it would do is it would bring up the same screen that we saw before, which is not pulling up because I didn't do it correctly.
Actually, if you go back to the last quote that you had,
Yep.
this
Okay.
isn't going to work because you don't have a
I know.
contact
I'm
selected.
trying to do it quick and dirty. So we'll go back to the last one here. Sorry. All right.
Yep, and go up to
Duplicate it.
File. Exactly.
Okay. Yep. And now we can save it again.
Exactly.
And this says create or attach a deal. And what I was trying to do is get you to this screen, which is the screen that comes up when you first create the deal, but then you can come in and adjust this as well every time you save as well.
And this answers a question that Brian actually had, asking what stage will the HubSpot deal create, and you can select whichever stage you want it to be if we're creating a new one. And I believe there's a default that we can do in the setup as well, as far as what that default stage would be. And if not, we could probably add it. So, all right.
Yeah,
Very good. Thank you. I think that's
awesome.
it. Oh, we got a bunch of questions come in. Let's see.
Okay, I like questions.
Yeah.
I see. Are the quote numbers sequential? They
Yep.
are. So if you are creating quotes, I showed that you can choose your quote number. It's automatically assigned though, and they are done in sequence.
Let's see. The question had to do from Alex. Alex doesn't use Quote Valet, so I have to save it as a PDF and send it over, so the customer doesn't have an option to select from. So
Okay.
with that, basically, Alex, you could have it so your customer could tell you which one that they want, and then when they want to go ahead and move forward with the deal, you could go ahead and select the appropriate option at that point, Alex. You'd be able to see option A or option B on that quote that you're sending them via the PDF. Okay,
Yeah,
very good.
and
All right,
using heading lines as well, you'll be able to clearly show the differentiation between the price of those two options as well.
perfect.
Awesome. So as mentioned, we start with the introduction to how you might use. Now we're going to go and talk about how you might set up the integration to be able to provide all these things that we just did. You need to make sure that you follow a couple steps. And it is relatively easy to get the integration set up within QuoteWerks. We'll kind of walk through a couple components. The first is the account. It's a tab that we have within the integration section. This is where you're going to essentially connect your QuoteWerks account with your HubSpot CRM account. And then we are also going to talk about deals, which is going to talk about the mechanisms and ways in which deals are created with a couple options that you have to control those. We're also going to talk about the fact that you can connect as a product data source your items or products list in HubSpot CRM. We'll show you how to do that in just a few minutes. And then Datalink we'll talk about as well. And Datalink is a great opportunity for you to be able to take information from QuoteWerks that are non-standard fields and push them over into HubSpot CRM, or to take non-standard fields from HubSpot CRM and bring them into QuoteWerks. And here we've just got, again, the Save Quote window, and we'll look at this picture that's down in the left-hand corner in a little bit, as this is what we would do to actually connect the two accounts. Now, some prerequisites. We want to make sure that we have an active HubSpot CRM account, and this is going to utilize OAuth authentication, so we need to make sure that we have all of our accounts set up and those credentials ready to go. So as I mentioned, setup is relatively easy, and the easiest way to show it is to do it. So we're going to hop over now into a setup demo and go through the different steps to get things integrated. So we are going to click back over into QuoteWerks. And the first thing I want to show you is the way in which you would go about adding a product data source. It is, again, relatively simple to do. In this case, we're going to go to Setup and then Product Data Sources. And this is where you would go to add any of the connected product data sources that we have available to be connected to QuoteWerks. In this case, we've got HubSpot CRM. I'm going to go ahead and actually blow this one away so we can show you how you might create a new one. I'm not able to create multiple of the same data sources here. So we just removed that one by clicking the delete button. We'll now go ahead and hit, We'll go ahead and hit new, not edit. And we can choose from this drop-down HubSpot CRM. When we hit next, it brings us over to field mapping, and you'll see that we have our fields mapped automatically for us, as we've got some standard fields. And we'll hit next. We can name the database, in this case HubSpot CRM. We can change the column titles if we'd like. So in this case, it's showing us the QuoteWerks field, what it's called, and what the external field is called as well. So if you want to come in and potentially update those to be consistent across all three, you can do that. Product data source security, who has the ability to use this product data source. And then finally here on our finish screen, we can either disable this product data source if we want, and toggle to show all product or services when the product data source is selected as well. I'm going to leave both of those deselected, but when we hit finish here, you'll see that the HubSpot CRM product data source is now listed here, and that's what we would need to do in order for it now to be selectable via our product lookup window. So very quickly, we're able to go remove the product data source, re-add it, and really within just a minute or so, we're able to go and query the product database for the products that we're looking for. So that's step number one. The next step that we have here is going to be within the contacts manager setup. So we can do that in two different ways. We can either go to setup CRM integrations or contacts, setup contact manager. Now we do already have HubSpot CRM selected here. So all we need to do is make sure that that is selected. And then if we want to get into actually working with HubSpot CRM, we just need to click on the menu item here. And there's two different tabs here, integration settings and Datalink. We'll start by clicking into integration settings. And as I mentioned, we have two tabs, account and deals. So under the account tab, this is really just a way that you're going to connect your account to HubSpot. In this case, I disconnected, show you how easy it is to get connected. We're going to click request user access to HubSpot. This is going to go out to HubSpot into our account, have us choose which account we want to use. And so long as you've already authenticated in the HubSpot, the OAuth connection successful prompt will come up, and we can then retrieve our access token. So you can see we're still not connected. But when we retrieve our access token, it'll move from not connected to connected. And that takes just a couple seconds here. So not only does it take a very short period of time to connect the product data source, but getting this connection established is also very quick. So setup, very limited. And then we have this test connection button here that we can use as well, just to make sure that everything is good to go. So we will go back to our integration settings, and it's going to ask us if we want to change. So we'll hit, or save those changes. So hit yes, and then we'll go into deals. And again, this is the settings that are going to control the way in which a deal is handled and the way in which information is passed from QuoteWerks into HubSpot CRM. So as I just demoed, most of our customers are going to complete the deal to one when the order has been converted, or when the quote has been converted to an order. But you do have the option to do that when it's converted to an invoice, or you can choose to not do it and manually manage it on your end. Most people are also going to utilize the sale amount in the deal, but there are some use cases in which individuals only want to see profit amount. So you can use profit amount instead of the sale amount if you'd like to do that. That's going to send the profit amount over in the deal rather than the sale amount. You can also update the HubSpot deal with the document name. And then this is the deal pipeline that is going to automatically default. Now again, this list of two is coming from our HubSpot CRM integration. Now we have our mapping. So when we write products into a deal, we want to map the QuoteWerks field manufacturer part number to HubSpot name. Manufacturer part number is the unique identifier in the QuoteWerks system. So that's generally going to be what's going to be chosen. But that being said, you have the ability to choose many different options if you'd like. And if you do, you can change how those things will be generated. So in the case of this, we can choose that if the custom text 01 is not there, we can either auto-generate using a macro or auto-generate using a macro based on the item type. So it's basically just saying if we have a product that is of labor type, to use this macro, and you can actually, again, break that down based on the item types. I'm going to go ahead and choose this back as manufacturer part number, again, because that's generally what we'll do. We also need to have a way to input a name if there is no existing name there. So if the manufacturer part number is blank, QW general product will be the item there, and then the map QuoteWerks field to the SKU field. In this case, we've got custom text 01 to HubSpot SKU. Now, I alluded very briefly to the fact that within QuoteWerks, you have the ability to build bundles or kits or logically grouped collections of products together. There's some bundle handling here. So in this case, you can choose to, if you've got a bundle of products together, only send over a single summary line item. And then you also have the ability to set what bundle product ID you'd like to use if you're doing that. So here we can see QW bundle. And then finally here for product lookups, the HubSpot field name is being used for the manufacturer part number, but we can also toggle that to be SKU if we would like as well. So this is the integration settings page. Again, we talked about how you can both set up the account and how you can also set up deals as well. Another option that we have is to pass information between the two systems utilizing Datalink. So if there's information in HubSpot that you would like to gain access to and read into QuoteWerks, you can do that. Likewise, you can write it out to HubSpot CRM if it exists in QuoteWerks as well. So I'm just going to use a basic example here, but the extensibility of data links is pretty broad, and there's a lot of information in the help files about it. So let's say that when we're working in the QuoteWerks quote, that we want to create an action when we retrieve our sold to contact. So here we're saying when we retrieve our sold to contact, go out to HubSpot CRM. In this case, we're going to want to read into QuoteWerks. And you can see there's a ton of different things and fields that we can pull from our HubSpot CRM instance. Now, that being said, there's really an unlimited number of things that can be done here, but you're going to want to find what your use case is and use that. So in this case, we might take the life cycle stage here and just bring it over into the custom text 01. It's kind of an arbitrary decision on my part because I'm not really familiar with all those different fields that we have. Another one would be if you wanted to pull in company terms into the terms field, you can do that. But custom text 01 and the other custom text options are really great options here for being able to pull in information that's not currently represented by a QuoteWerks field. And once this information is pulled in, it will be brought into custom text 01 at the time of retrieving the sold to, and you'll have that now in the QuoteWerks system. Just like we did here going from HubSpot into QuoteWerks, we could also make it so that when we create an opportunity, for example, or a deal, that we're actually sending information that's not standard over to HubSpot CRM as well. So Datalink is a great option and one that you can use, but it's really very much use case based. So if there's an instance where you have information that you want to share between the two systems, but you're not able to natively, take a look at Datalink, and I know our support team is more than happy to help you to set that up if you'd like. There's one last thing I just wanted to point out, and I did allude to it earlier here today. Based on your workflow, there may be different ways in which you want to utilize HubSpot and potentially other tools that you have. At this time, we have the HubSpot CRM set as our primary CRM integration. That means that we are utilizing it, and every time we hit save and it's set to online, we're updating the HubSpot CRM opportunity. If we wanted to, we could also come down here and set either Autotask or ConnectWise as our secondary CRM integration. And this is going to make it possible for you to create quotes and do all of the in-flight sales activities. So creating the quote, quoting the customer, making changes, so on and so forth, but then only send this deal to the secondary CRM when the quote is converted to an order. So that's one example of how you might utilize a secondary CRM. In this case, you also have the option to set it so that that secondary CRM export window is on each save as well. Again, just like Datalink, this is a really extensible option, but it's really going to be based on the way in which you manage your own business and the different workflows that you have.
And
So
if I could I was just going to interject right there. And the reason that we have this option is because typically, if you're using a PSA like Autotask or ConnectWise, they are great ticketing systems. They're great for managing your techs and what your customers have as far as systems are concerned. But when it comes to the sales operations, those PSAs typically do not excel to the point that, say, like a HubSpot would. So this way, your sales organization can go ahead and take advantage of all the great functionality that HubSpot has, including the ability to track clicks on the website anytime the email is open, blah blah blah. And then when you win that opportunity, then you can take over and then use where the PSA really takes over when it comes and excels at, and that way you get the best of both worlds.
Yeah. I appreciate that clarification, Brian. It can
Yeah.
sometimes be a difficult concept to understand, but does really have a lot of power if
Right.
that makes sense for your business. All right. So we've gone through the use, we've gone through the setup. I want to point out the fact that there are a ton of other resources that you have available to you. The QuoteWerks help files are available to you if you want to go and learn more. We've got our videos, we've got our forum. We do have these webinars on a regular basis, and we're likely going to be increasing the frequency of them moving forward. So keep an eye out for those emails. And at the beginning of the webinar as well, Brian had asked a question about whether or not people are familiar with the tips and tricks emails. Tips and tricks emails are emails that are sent out every month with a different feature or spotlight on a different thing that QuoteWerks can do. And it's really insightful because these are oftentimes things that you might not normally think of in your day-to-day, and could certainly provide you with some thoughts as to how you might be able to use the system differently. So if you're interested, just type in tips and tricks QuoteWerks in Google, and it'll bring you to that sign up page. And then we also have, as I mentioned before, community@quotewerks.com. And it looks like Brian also put that link to tips and tricks in the chat as well, so feel free to go there. Brian, I've seen a number of questions go through. I do appreciate the fact that you've been answering a number of them as we've been going. Is there anything outstanding that we want to review before we go?
No, a lot of them were some one-off questions. Any of the ones that would pertain to everybody, I made sure that you answered those. So yeah, definitely. If we did not answer the question that you were looking for, please feel free to send an email to community@quotewerks.com. We'll be happy to answer them, or at least expedite it and get it over to support that so they can answer the question for you as well.
Yep. And this presentation is being recorded, and it'll be brought out to the website within the next 24 hours. So if you want to re-review, or if you have others on the team that you want to share it with, feel free to do so. I really appreciate everyone's time, and look forward to seeing you in future webinars.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Have a good day.